Hello everyone and welcome back. I am Duke Silver, and today we're going to be doing another vintage cube here, and apologies, it's been a little bit since my last upload. I've been dealing with some health issues unfortunately, but yeah, hopefully we're going to be able to get some more uploads more frequently going forward. But yeah, let's just jump into this. So pick one, pack one. I mean, I think it's a pretty easy demonic tutor here. Coalition Relic is also a pretty solid pickup, and there's also Dak Baden. Those are the only cards I'm really considering as a first pick here. Dak Baden, there's a lot of artifacts that you can steal in this cube, but locking yourself into two colors isn't necessarily something I want to do immediately here. So we take the Demonic Tutor. Also, Demonic Tutor allows us to aggressively take combo pieces. Speaking of combo pieces, there's a Deceiver Exarch, which we are looking at right now. The only other notable cards in the pack, I think, are Makeshift Mannequin and the Signet. The other ones are like kind of just like role players in certain decks. I think we're going to go with the Signet here, though. I mean, fast mana is just super important. And like we don't like, I mean, if we can't guarantee that we're going to find Splinter Twins, so we're just not going to bother with that. So here we have got a Scalding Tarn, which I think is the front runner. Enlightened Tutor is another tutor which can help you find combo pieces if they're artifact or enchantment based. The rest, again, just like pretty solid sort of role players in different decks. We do take the Scalding Tarn here. It's just going to give us good mana going down the line. And then we get an Imperial Seal in this pack, which I'm very tempted to take. I mean, it goes pretty well with our Demonic Tutor. Allows us to just to find all kinds of combo pieces, so we can just build a bunch of combos. And we do just take that pretty quickly there. In this pack, Solemn Simulacrum is a very fair card, but it's also pretty solid. It goes in any deck, so that's a card that I like a lot in this cube, or just in general. There's also Opposition here, which, like, if we can find like a Bitter Blossom or something, Opposition could be very powerful. If we get enough artifact mana, Winter Orb is also another consideration. And again, there's a couple more role players in certain decks. I think we're just going to take this Simulacrum here, though. Again, it's just very solid. Gives you a decent little card advantage boost, and it's an artifact, so it can go. You don't need any specific colored mana to play it. And here, this is a really spicy pack. So now we have to decide between Metalworker and Sneak Attack. I was just looking at Dream Halls. There's also a Reanimate. We just saw Makeshift Mannequin earlier. Force of Will is like a decent little piece of disruption, especially if your opponents are comboing off. But I think it's really just between Metalworker and Sneak Attack. And we've got two artifacts already. I think we're just going to take Metalworker. And yeah, we can always turn to like Demonic Tutor or Imperial Seal and get Metalworker. A lot more consistently. Speaking of Imperial Seal, there's a Vampiric Tutor as well, which we're going to take. So we've just got all kinds of tutors. And then there's a Wormcoil Engine, which is something that we can reasonably accelerate into here. Also, it adds mana with the Metalworker by sitting in hand. There is a Goblin Welter as well as an Inkwell Leviathan. Inkwell Leviathan, another thing that we want to spend a bunch of mana on, and also another artifact. So that's going to go really well with our Metalworker. We can accelerate that out pretty quickly here. We've even got a Dimir Signet and a blue fetch land. I was considering the Goblin Welder just because, like, I feel like Goblin Welder is like a pretty underutilized card, but it's pretty interesting as well. There's Paradoxical Outcome, which, I mean, if we get a bunch of artifact mana, it's going to be very, very good because we can just tap it all, bounce it all, and then play it all again, and you can get pretty deep into your deck with that. Also combos really well with like Aetherflux Reservoir if we can find that. There's an Enlightened Tutor, another tutor for so we would get 4 tutors in our pack 1 if we take the Enlightened Tutor here. There's also Scarab God, which is just a solid mana sink, although it takes a lot of colored mana, so with all these artifacts, like, that's not necessarily what we want. A couple of lands here. I mean, we did take the Enlightened Tutor, so taking the white land is kind of a no-brainer there. We're going to take the Looter here just because it's a blue card, and the other two are they're just okay. Like, the one is just a reanimation sort of activator, and then the Midnight Reaper is just a very fair mid-range card in general. Alright, pack 2. We're looking at, like, Crucible of Worlds is really interesting, just because we do have a fetch land. There's also another fetch land in this pack, which is a consideration. But if we can find like a Strip Mine or a Wasteland, excuse me, then that can be very, very good. And with all these tutors that we have, like, I feel like Crucible has a really, really high upside here. And the rest of the pack is just like it's just kind of whatever. I mean, just a lot of other cards that just don't really help us too much. Like, I mean, we could take Mana Lake for disruption. We could take Grave Titan just as a sort of a something to accelerate into potentially. Oh, there's a Mana Vault. So Mana Vault is going to be the easy pick here. I mean, it's an artifact. It taps for a ton of mana. So 1 mana to tap for 3 is incredibly good. We would like to get a couple more things that we can accelerate into, but yeah, Mana Vault is definitely a very important piece here to this artifact ramp deck. And speaking of things that we can accelerate into, that's an Ulamog. It's 10 mana when you cast it. It exiles 2 permanents, and yeah, we have a pretty easy time casting it. Although we do have an Urza's Saga also in this pack, and with the Mana Vault, like, it's very, very tempting to just jam this Urza's Saga. There's also a Lotus Bloom potentially. Yeah, other cards of note. I mean, Liliana, it's very fair. It's very color intensive though, and we're like, we kind of want to we want to have like more colorless threats if we can. And yeah, we do end up taking the Urza's Saga over the Ulamog. We're hoping the Ulamog wheels. Like, it's possible it could. There's definitely better like reanimation targets and whatnot. So. Alright, in this pack there's Grim Monolith and Treachery. Treachery is just a really, really good card, but we take the Grim Monolith. It just fits our deck so much better. But Treachery, you can steal their best threat, and it can and we basically get to cast another spell for free. But with all this artifact mana, we won't necessarily get full value out of the untap of the lands untapping as anyways. So we went with the Monolith. And here it's just a very easy card. Time Twister is also really good because you can just like kind of vomit your hand out with all this artifact mana and then like refill your hand with Time Twister, but Karn being a really, really good colorless threat that we can ramp out is a little bit too hard to pass up. Also, it's an extremely resilient Planeswalker. It has like really, really high loyalty, so it's just very good there. This is a pretty easy upheaval. Yeah, the rest of the pack just isn't really anything that we want here. There's a couple lands that we would potentially be interested in, but I mean, upheaval with all this artifact mana is just kind of a no-brainer. And there's Channel. Channel going super, super late here. Not really sure why it's going this late, but I think we're gonna pick it up just in case. And also, like, the rest of this pack just doesn't really offer us anything. Like a Hornet Queen, we don't have enough green mana for Hornet Queen. We're not going to have double black on turn 2 for him to Turok, and like, we don't want to be playing too many things that are just like random disruption. We want to kind of execute a game plan. So we just take the Channel just in case we end up with enough green mana to cast it. It also produces colorless mana, so it allows us to cast anything. There's Hangerback Walker, which is a fantastic way or place to put all our colorless mana. But I think we're just going to take the Tropical Island. We already have a fetch land that can go get it. We have the Channel, so we might as well take it here. Lotus Petal was potentially a consideration, but Lotus Petal is more of a storm card than anything. Like the one mana just isn't really going to do much here. I think we're just going to take the Mana Leak here. Mana Leak coming back is kind of wild, and also we can kind of just it's not very color intensive, so you can kind of just like disrupt somebody's combo if or just like by leaving 2 mana up, and that shouldn't be too hard with this deck. All right, we take the Custody Lich, which gives you Monarch. Lotus Bloom and Ulamog came back. We're definitely taking Ulamog here. Again, that's something that we can easily accelerate into. I believe you can put Lotus Bloom onto the field with Urza's Saga, but we decided to take the Ulamog anyways, even though that's a cute little combo. Just normally it's not very good. Again, I think it's more of a storm card as well. And yeah, we're gonna get a really late Bayou here, which is fantastic, and also another green source. We take Eureka, and we also get an Overgrown Tomb last pick. So people not taking lands highly enough in this draft, but we are benefiting from that. All right, and this is going to be an easy Soul Ring. Once again, Soul Ring plus Mana Vault is two premium 1-drop mana rocks here that are going to be excellent with the Urza's Saga. Also, it's just an artifact with Metalworker as well, allows us to accelerate out Metalworker. And yeah, I think Soul Ring may be just the most busted card in the cube, just by itself anyways. Alright, there's Aetherflux Reservoir, so That's definitely a consideration. If we can just like, again, if we can get that into play and just like vomit our hand out from all that artifact mana, then that can end up being a lot of triggers. It's sort of an alternate win condition potentially. The fetch land is just a little bit too good though, because we have all these green sources that we can fetch with the fetch land. I think we just gotta take it and then think about playing channel as well. A couple more triomes here. Trinket Mage again is going to be really good, or Trinket Mage is going to be really good with the Soul Ring and Mana Vault. Yeah, other than that, not a ton that's exciting for our deck here. Yeah, I think we're just going to take the Trinket Mage. Alright, here is a Shriek Maw. Shriek Maw is highlighted here, but I think Worn Power Stone is probably the pick. It's another artifact ramp card, and yeah, we just snap pick it quickly before I get a chance to explore the rest of the pack here. Again, there's a Hallowed Fountain, which is potentially fetchable. Yeah, not a ton else here. Like a Shark Typhoon is kind of interesting. It's just a decent place to put our mana. Also cycles, and potentially you could cast it and then just like cast a bunch of like artifact, all your mana rocks and stuff kind of become threats. So that's kind of my inclination here. But there's also Underground River. Like we do want blue and black sources, so we just end up taking Underground River. And there's Cauldra, which we are potentially going to take. It's another colorless threat that we can ramp out. We definitely kind of lacking in there. We've got like 3-4 things that we can really accelerate out. And yeah, we don't want to end up with just like a bunch of stuff in our hand, like a bunch of mana rocks in our opening hand, and then not have anything to build towards. So we do need to kind of get a couple threats here. All right, this Factor Fiction, that's going to be a good way to kind of refill our hand once we've emptied it with all these mana rocks. There's also Scrubland there, which is a consideration. Meathook Massacre, also kind of a nice little reset switch against creature deck, and also a good place to put your mana. We're just going to take a very late Basalt Monolith here, just more artifact ramp, and then all this green mana that we've been taking because of channel really pays off, because we get a very late Tooth and Nail as well. And again, we played Tooth and Nail in the last draft, but I mean it's just so good, and people seem to undervalue it. There's Aetherflux Reservoir. We're not going to take another Pattern of Rebirth, unfortunately. It's not going to be a complete rehash of the last draft. But we're gonna take the Aetherflux Reservoir here, I think, especially since we have the Upheaval. Like if we can make some wild turns with Aetherflux Reservoir, artifact mana, and Upheaval, just being able to replay all our mana artifacts and whatnot. And there's this Plow Under again, so it's a little bit of a rehash of the last draft, I guess. I feel like people just like are undervaluing some of these cards, and we're just getting them super late. I don't know that we're necessarily going to play the Plow Under, but we are going to take it here. After we take a couple inconsequential their last picks, we get a Braids and a Vampire Hexmage, I believe. Yeah, we get our deck here. So this is our completed deck. Obviously the game plan is just play a bunch of artifact mana. We're kind of built around Metalworker, hoping for an explosive turns with that, as well as like a bunch of different artifact ramp that we can ramp into these threats with. So our whole game plan is to basically like either cast Upheaval and like basically make opponents reset all their lands and whatnot while we play all their artifacts back again, or just accelerate out a game-ending threat and win that way. So yeah, so let's get into it. We ended up not playing the Enlightened Tutor, even though it's pretty good. Just the mana just wasn't quite there, unfortunately, but we did manage to get enough green sources to play Channel and Plow Under. So there's that. Okay, we got a pretty reasonable opening hand here. We get Urza's Saga plus an island for our Trinket Mage. So we're going to be able to play Saga, go and find Soul Ring, and then use that to cast Trinket Mage. Which in turn is going to be able to go and find like Mana Vault or something. We don't necessarily have anything that we can cast, but we do have a colorless. We can tap for colorless mana, so we're gonna play the island just to leave up Mana Leak. Like playing the Overgrown Tomb tapped here is a little bit better for our life total, but I think leaving Mana Leak up is pretty good here. And yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and mana leak the Frantic Search. Let's not give them any chance to put anything in the graveyard, even though like we could potentially counter something more impactful than card filtering. We pop our Urza Saga, which lets us go search for an artifact that costs 1 or less, or I think it's 1 or 0. And we find Soul Ring, of course, which gives us 2 mana. And so now we've got 3 mana. We can cast this Trinket Mage. We still haven't played our land either, so yeah, we can go find our Mana Vault. We can play our Overgrown Tomb untapped, cast our Mana Vault, use the Mana Vault to cast our Power Stone, and yeah, I mean, the Mana Vault doesn't untap, but we still have a ton of artifact mana on board already. Opponent's going to go for a Time Walk here, so basically they're just going to use it like Explore. They get to draw an extra card and play an extra land. They're going to Snapcaster Time Walk, so they're 2 turns ahead now. But I mean, since they're not doing anything impactful in their turns, like these Time Walks, they're like glorified explorers here. They didn't even play a land there, so they're not even ahead on land drops. And I think I'm fine with just blocking here, just in case they have any kind of flicker effects. We don't want them just like playing like a Soul Herder, and I mean, I guess if they had Soul Herder, they wouldn't attack, but we don't want them flickering their Snapcaster. I mean, I guess Time Walk's gone from the graveyard after that flashback, so never mind. Just forget I said all that. We do find our second green source, which means we can plow under this turn, and we're going to. They have 2 Triomes here. We're going to put them on top, and that's going to slow them down really significantly here. And then yeah, we're able to basically just find a spot to cast our Tooth and Nail and probably just win the game here. We're going to untap our Mana Vault, play our Grim Monolith, and then we're just going to Tooth and Nail next turn, I think. Either Tooth and Nail or Upheaval. We have options here. They have been leaving mana up, but by the way that they cast those Time Walks, I'm pretty sure they're on Storm, so Counterspell is probably not exactly what they're looking to do. Although I think we actually are going to go for the Upheaval this turn, just to make sure that they don't have a Counterspell. Again, we get to float a bunch of mana, and then we put all their lands into their hand. I mean, our lands also go into our hand, but again, we get to cast all our artifact ramp here. Don't even have to cast, or we don't even have to tap our Mana Vault. We leave mana in the pool as well. And yeah, now we can just cast Tooth and Nail basically unhindered next turn. Like, unless they have a Force of Will, but I feel like if they had Force of Will, they definitely cast it last turn, right? Oh, I guess we do need 2 green sources for to be able to cast the Tooth and Nail, so we can't necessarily cast it this turn. We're just kind of hoping they just play a second tap land. There we go. If they played an untapped island, then I would definitely be a little bit concerned, but feel pretty good about this. And also we get to cast Fact or Fiction this turn, so it's not like we just got to cast nothing that turn. We could just take the Paradoxical Outcome and like bounce all our mana rocks and replay them all. That would give us a lot of mana, or a lot of cards, but just go for the channel here. Not that it's really going to matter. We're not going to be able to. We're not going to need to cast the channel, I don't think. We're just going to go for the Entwined Tooth and Nail. Just want to tap a little bit better, so we don't have to tap the Mana Vault. If we don't have to tap the Mana Vault, we might as well not, just because it costs more to untap it than it taps for. And yeah, we can go get Ulamog as well, or we're gonna go get Inkwell plus Wormcoil here. That should be enough to end the game. And like that way we have we can always go find Ulamog if we need it with the Vampiric Tutor, and then it can also exile lands and whatnot, or exile any problematic permanent. Alright, opponent casts Baral, and yeah, I'm pretty convinced that they're on Storm with the Frantic Search and whatnot already at this point. Since they're not really doing anything, it seems like they're just building to a big Storm turn. Alright, we're gonna cast the Vampiric Tutor here. Just as a backup. I mean, like, we're not gonna be able to kill them this turn, so. Or I guess technically we cast it before we draw, so we're gonna cast the channel and cast the Ulamog this turn. Sorry, it's been a little bit since I played these games, so so doing this this like post commentary in real time is like I'm pretty sure I remember what happened, but some things are a little bit off. Anyways, we were able to cast the Vampiric Tutor before our draw step, and then draw our Ulamog, and then cast Channel, and then just cast the Ulamog, just to make sure that the opponent's never going to be able to do anything about our threat. Alright, unfortunately this isn't the fastest hand ever. Like Grim Monolith is fine. Grim Monolith into Wormcoil might be good enough. Or Grim, I guess going into Karn. Karn is going to be really good against Storm because they kind of sit and wait until they've got the resources to be able to go off. Like being able to pick apart their hand by plussing Karn is really, really strong. And it looks like they've got a better opening hand here. They've got Black Lotus plus Mox Emerald into Emery, and Emery says you can tap it to cast an artifact from your graveyard every turn. So that's going to be a free Black Lotus every single turn for the opponent. So again, a much better start here. And yeah, they are full on Storm. They got Lion's Eye Diamond, Metamorphose, and yeah, I mean with Black Lotus and everything, like they are definitely storming, and it looks like they have a pretty good Storm deck as well. So I think we might be dead here if they can just go off within the first couple turns. Like we don't really have a lot of action. We don't even have blue source to potentially disrupt something with our Mana Leak, which is a little bit unfortunate. We do get to play our Grim Monolith though. And yeah, we're definitely not even going to bother with the Wormcoil Engine. Wormcoil Engine is going to be far too slow here. We're going to have to wait an extra turn and basically use that Grim Monolith mana to cast Karn and hope that we can pick apart the hand. Yeah, they get a free Black Lotus every single turn, which is pretty unfortunate for us. It's very good for them. And yeah, it looks like they go for a Mind's Desire for only 2 here, which seems pretty not like, I think they could have done better. Like they had to have had a spell that they could have cast with that Black Lotus, right, to at least get one more Storm count. Like I'm maybe they're hoping that they just hit something that would allow them to continue to storm off after that off the top of their deck, but with only 2 triggers, like it's pretty unlikely for them to hit really what they want. Alright, we do find a blue source, so now we can Mana Leak something. They're going to cast their Black Lotus, of course. There's that Frantic Search. I mean, we could cast the Mana Leak here and just force them to sack their Black Lotus. Doesn't really do much here, but that is an option. We decide against it, of course. It just, like, I mean, they can just pay the mana with the Black Lotus, and then they still get to untap their lands. Like, it does take away 3 mana from their turn, so if they're like thinking of storming off, it kind of throws a wrench in their plans. But just in case they have like they end up with like a Time Twister or something, or like Time Spiral. If they try to play like a Time Spiral or something, then being able to Mana Leak a Time Spiral would be enormous. Right, looks like they're tapping for a bunch of mana here, going for an Upheaval, and yeah, I'm glad we held off here, because we are absolutely going to Mana Leak that. We're the only ones that get to Upheaval in this game. And also that clears the way for our Karn here. Like they spent a lot of resources there, hoping for the Upheaval, I'm assuming, and we get our land here to play our Karn. We can just start picking apart the hand. I think we might actually want to get rid of the Emery though, just so they're not casting, or we're gonna get rid of the Emery just so they're not casting Black Lotus every turn. And then yeah, I mean, they're not really gonna be able to pressure Karn, especially in a Storm deck. Storm decks often just have a lot of just like a lot of wheel spinning, like to try and like storm off and win the game. They are gonna once again Snapcaster the Time Walk. So, I mean, they are going to be able to attack Karn with the Snapcaster, so that's a little bit of pressure, but, I mean, if they don't kill Karn this turn, then then we're just going to be able to +4 it, and the Snapcaster's never going to be able to pressure it enough. We draw Metalworker with the rest of our hand being almost entirely artifacts, so that's a pretty good pickup. We could also just play the Solemn, but I mean Metalworker would allow us to cast Ulamog potentially the following turn, because we do have 3 artifacts, so that's 6 mana plus our 4 here. Yeah, we exile a card. I didn't quite see what the card was that we exiled, but again, it's like the plussing on Karn is just so good. It starts picking apart their hand so fast. And yeah, you can see opponent decided they can't beat Karn, so we pick up the win there, even through the infinite Black Lotuses. Well, not quite infinite, I guess, but Black Lotus every turn should be enough to win usually. We do have to send back that first hand, as we didn't have any lands, and we do have an Urza's Saga with an island into Trinket Mage once again, so this is a great start, as we saw in game 1 of the last round. Also, we're going to be able to accelerate. We have something to accelerate into in a Karn, and we're going to be able to get both our Mana Vault and Soul Ring, so we should be able to get into that pretty early here. Alright, we start with the Saga, of course, because we want to get that Soul Ring as soon as possible. We can play out the Grim Monolith here. There's also Cauldron Complete, which is another threat that we can potentially accelerate out. Opponent starts with an Ancestral Vision, so again, maybe another Storm deck here. Although Ancestral Vision is just a pretty solid card draw, but even in like control decks and whatnot. We're going to pop our Urza's Saga and go get our Soul Ring here. Then we're going to tap it for Trinket Mage once again, getting our Mana Vault. Opponent looks like they had a counter spell, but it looks like they might be trying to do the tap. I have a counter spell, but decided against it. Bluff. I feel like I guess if you have Mana Leak, like I have the Grim Monolith to pay, so maybe that's why they went tap and untap. But you never know when somebody's thinks they're slick and is trying to next level you. And we decided not to play the Mana Vault with the Grim Monolith just because we'd like it just didn't seem necessarily worth it. Like, we're not really gaining mana that way. And since they both don't untap, it just didn't seem to make sense. But yeah, we get to play the Mana Vault into the Karn, and yeah, the Karn resolves, and opponent just decides to scoop it up. If they did have a counter spell there, then yeah, they're never going to be able to beat a Karn if we just never play anything. So definitely a reasonable scoop from them. This hand's a little bit awkward. We do have lands. We've got Worn Power Stone, but it's just not fast enough. So we go for the we ship it back anyways, and we do find a hand with Channel. So we've got Channel plus Channel into Wormcoil Engine, which is not the greatest channel, but also we can go Channel into Aetherflux Reservoir, which gains us life, and then if we can just draw some more spells, then every subsequent spell we play on that turn ends up gaining us life, which also gains us mana. So there's a potential to really pop off there. Although opponent just plays a Workshop into a Metalworker on turn 1, so they're kind of doing a similar thing to what we're doing here. And yeah, depending on how many artifacts they have in hand, this could be an extremely explosive turn from the opponent. Tap the Metalworker. They reveal just Lotus Petal, so 2 mana, not entirely unbeatable. They also have an Emery, and they mill Phyrexian Metamorph. But they're going to be able to cast their Lotus Petal every turn, which is still mana. It's not quite Black Lotus every turn, but it's still pretty good. But also, they don't have any colored lands. So the only land they have is Mishra's Workshop. So that is definitely good news for us, although they will be able to find colored mana with the Lotus Petal each turn. We're casting Imperial Seal here. I'll be honest, I didn't actually see what we got. We'll see what we draw when we draw it next turn. It might have been Ulamog actually. Yeah, I think it was Ulamog because we have the double green for the Channel. So Channel into Ulamog. would make the most sense. And yeah, we still have Demonic Tutor as well. Alright, we take one from the Metalworker, which is no big deal. We've got 16 mana or 16 life to work with here for this channel. And yeah, I believe we're gonna go Aetherflux Reservoir into Basalt Monolith. Actually, I don't actually recall if I did play the Aetherflux Reservoir, because I mean, I think that's definitely the play, because you play it. No, I went for the Ulamog immediately here, so I probably should have went for the Aetherflux Reservoir into the Basalt Monolith, tapping the Basalt Monolith for 3 mana. I mean, it didn't matter. We just played the Ulamog, we exiled 2 of their things, and we just won the game. So, like, again, it doesn't matter too much, but that was definitely not the most efficient play. Yeah, I think we would have gotten the most of the life back, because it counts the channel and the Aetherflux Reservoir as spells. So the Basalt Monolith gains us 3 life, then the Ulamog would have gained us 4. So that would have given us 7 life there. Potentially enough to even cast the Worm Coil for 5 extra life. Okay, so yeah, we did have to ship our initial hand back, but we got a Grim Monolith into Worn Power Stone into potentially Upheaval, and drawing the mana vault here is incredibly good. And I think we're gonna tap. We should tap the mana vault for the Worn Power Stone here. I think the monolith is probably not, or I guess we can tap for the monolith, tap the monolith for the Worn Power Stone, just to get everything into play. We are gonna have to spend some mana just untapping things for the next couple turns, but at least it's all in play. Okay, opponent just decided that was enough, and scooped it up. Like, I mean, after seeing how our last hand went, like, it's fair enough, I guess. So we're on to game 3 already, or round 3 here. Game 1. We get a pretty reasonable opening hand. We do have a blue source. We have the Dimir Signet. We've got our Metalworker. We've got our Tooth and Nail. We've got all the pieces that we could ask for. I spent some time deliberating on what to get rid of between Fact or Fiction or Tooth and Nail there. Eventually we decided to get rid of Tooth and Nail. I'm not entirely sure that's necessarily correct, but your boy did seem in chat. You can see his messages there. Did seem to think that was the play. So eventually I deferred to him, and we decided to just go for that. So we get a turn 1 Mana Vault into a Metalworker here, which is going to be great here. I mean, we only have 1 artifact in hand, but maybe this Fact or Fiction can throw some extra artifacts in our hand as well. And this is just a mono white, like sort of white weenie aggro deck, I'm assuming here. We do draw Inkwell Leviathan, which is another artifact, of course, so we get to tap for 4 mana, which allows us to play our Dimir Signet with a couple mana floating here. And so we can play our untapped land, or we can either play Trinket Mage here, or we can play a land untapped and then Fact or Fiction. I do decide to go for the Trinket Mage. Actually, I guess we didn't need to play a land even, but yeah, then we get to play Trinket Mage, we get to play our Soul Ring, and then play our land tapped, and then we can Fact or Fiction the following turn. One plays, I believe it's just a 3/3 flyer, and it blinks something. Is that Flicker Wisp? I think it's just like a different version of Flicker Wisp, kinda. Alright, so we could just pay to untap it, and I think we're able to pay to untap it as well as get a Fact or Fiction. So we're gonna tap the Metalworker to untap it, and the Metalworker and the Soul Ring, get another land, and now we can just leave. Getting the land is kind of nice, because that means we don't have to tap our Mana Vault for the Fact or Fiction. And we can just do that end of turn. Opponent is going to play an Anthem creature. I'm not Kind of blanking on the name right now, but it's for every 2 extra you spend when you play it, it gets a counter, and then your creatures get an anthem for each of those counters. And an anthem is a +1/+1 to all your creatures, for those unfamiliar with the terminology. And they go for a 4-1 split here, so we can take 3 lands and Wormcoil, or we could just take the Tooth and Nail. And I mean, I think we have enough to entwine the Tooth and Nail, so we just take the Tooth and Nail. And yeah, we don't have any good blocks, so we just decide to take the damage here. We don't need to untap our Mana Vault, fortunately. And yeah, we have exactly 9 mana without the Metalworker. And then we draw Paradoxical Outcome, which is an interesting draw for sure. So what this is going to allow us to do actually is we're going to be able to tap. We're going to tap all our artifacts except for Metalworker, 4 mana. Just float the mana, and we're going to cast Paradoxical Outcome, and then bounce all 3 of our artifacts, and then we can tap the Metalworker for 8 mana, because that'll give us 4 artifacts in hand. Also, we're going to draw some cards, so I mean, technically we're going to have more than 4. We're potentially going to have more than 4. Because we're going to draw 3 cards off of this, and then also we're going to be able to play out all our artifacts once again, and be up on mana. As I mean, Mana Vault costs 1, taps for 3. Soul Ring costs 1, taps for 2. Dimir Signet does take us down 1 mana, but again, we gain so much from the Metalworker that it's definitely worth it here. So we draw 3, and yeah, we draw a couple more artifacts as well. So yeah, now we're going to get 12 mana from our Metalworker here. We don't have any blue sources except for the single Dimir Signet, unfortunately, but that's okay. Again, we can just we can hard cast our Tooth and Nail, and then we're still going to be able to play all our signets, or all our mana rocks and everything out. Opponent's being a little bit delayed here. All right, now time for Signet into Monolith. We could play the Power Stone. Doesn't actually tap for mana this turn, so we're just gonna hold off on that. We're just gonna get our Tooth and Nail done. We just use it. We get it done with our floating mana, and then we're gonna get Solemn plus Ulamog. But we're gonna put Solemn and Inkwell into play, because we're actually gonna be able to hard cast this Ulamog as well. We can even go get a land, which is nice. Thins our deck out a little bit. And we can spend the rest of our mana here. And just, yeah, we just hard cast Ulamog after entwining our Tooth and Nail. And we're going to get rid of the Anthem. And I think one of the lands... Like, I don't think we care too much about Mother of Runes. Okay, well, we just get rid of 2 threats here. Like, I guess getting rid of 1 land. Like, the mono-white aggro generally can operate off 3 lands just fine. So... we just decided to take out the 2 biggest creatures just to make sure that they're not going to find a way to get through everything. And opponent plays Elspeth Conquers Death, which is going to exile our Ulamog, and then it's going to make all our non-creature spells cost 2 more to play, and then they're going to get a creature card from their graveyard. I think it's their graveyard, not any graveyard. That's the 3rd chapter, anyways. But yeah, we're going to be able to plow under this turn and just like blank their next 2 draws. So that's gonna be helpful. We spend the mana to untap our Mana Vault, and we even get our upheaval here. Opponent blocks and makes it pro blue, but it does have trample. A little known thing about Inkwell Leviathan, it does have trample. Oftentimes it's unblockable because of Island Walk, but yeah, it in fact does have trample, which I was kind of surprised at when I started, or when I first when I played it. And there we go. That's it. That's a trophy. That's one of the easiest Vintage Cube trophies maybe of my entire life. The games went extremely fast. I think I actually mislabeled one of the rounds there. I thought that was game 1 of round 3, and I'm pretty sure that was game 2 actually. So yeah, again, this was just like an absolutely absurd artifact ramp deck, and And yeah, it was just so very efficient. The mana was so super good. We were able to cast our channel whenever we needed it. We were able to cast upheaval when we needed it. We had our black mana for our tutors and whatnot. And yeah, it just all went super well. And Urza's Saga on turn 1 just like was incredibly powerful in this deck. Like yeah, being able to consistently get Soul Ring and Mana Vault just made our deck so buttery smooth. And Metalworker just explodes for a ton of mana. But yeah. Again, I apologize for the lateness of this video. I know it's been over a week. Again, I've been dealing with a little bit of health issues, and yeah, I'm mostly better now. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get some more uploads more frequently going forward. But I appreciate your patience, and yeah, I think going forward, if I'm going to do more Vintage Cube things, I know some people said that the draft portion felt a little bit rushed. I tried to slow it down a little bit more in this one, but I think for the for more cubes going forward, maybe I'll just leave the draft section as is, like as I drafted it, just so like my thought processes and like all my thoughts are kind of like on display, rather than me doing kind of like a post commentary sort of condensed version after the fact. Definitely let me know if you think that would work better, if that's more something you would want to see. Again, I know a lot of people like the draft portion more than the games even. I myself find the draft portion to be very fun, and the games to be kind of hit or miss. I mean, sometimes you just don't get to play Magic, but you always get to draft, and you always get to draft a deck, which is the fun part anyways for me as well. Anyways, please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I would very much appreciate that. I forgot how I do these outros now. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Okay, bye-bye.